You probably believe addiction comes from a lack of discipline, weakness, or a simple failure of willpower. You've heard it countless times. Just quit, they say, as if it were that straightforward. But what if addiction isn't what you've always thought? What if it's actually your soul's quiet yet persistent way of trying to communicate something far deeper, something you've long ignored? Here's the paradox most people miss. Addicts aren't truly addicted to the substance itself. They're addicted to the fleeting relief it provides, a temporary escape from an internal pain they don't fully understand. Have you ever noticed that no matter how much you try to leave something behind, you keep returning to it, like a clock whose hands always stop at the exact same time, never able to move forward? Do you recognize this feeling? This endless loop where each attempt at escape brings you back to the same starting point, exhausted and empty-handed? Imagine your life as a watch stuck at one particular hour, frozen, unable to progress no matter how often you wind it. You might wonder, what am I truly running from or toward? Could it be that the very thing you reach for isn't the problem itself, but simply a symptom of something you've buried deep inside? Carl Jung once described this condition not as a moral failing or a problem of will, but as a spiritual crisis, a quiet yet powerful message from your own soul. What if your addiction isn't about substances, behaviors, or weakness, but a deeper, unspoken yearning for connection, meaning, and inner peace? Right now, pause and ask yourself honestly, what if your addiction has never been your enemy, but rather a misunderstood friend desperately trying to alert you to the true source of your pain? You might think you're addicted to a substance, a behavior, or perhaps a certain pattern that seems impossible to escape. But have you ever paused to ask yourself, what exactly are you truly craving? Could it be that the thing you're reaching for isn't the real addiction at all, but simply a brief moment of silence? A tiny glimpse of relief from an internal chaos you've never been able to quiet on your own? Consider this for a moment. You've been pulling a heavy invisible suitcase behind you all your life. You carry it everywhere, so familiar that you've stopped questioning why it feels so burdensome. But have you ever really looked inside it? Have you ever paused to wonder whose belongings you're actually carrying? Could it be filled with expectations, wounds, disappointments, and memories that never belonged to you in the first place? You've become so accustomed to this weight that you no longer even notice its presence. Yet every decision you make, every relationship you enter, every emotional reaction you experience is subtly influenced by the contents of that invisible suitcase. It's as if you're always trying to adjust your life around it without ever opening it up to examine what's truly inside. And what if one day you simply stopped pulling it along and opened it to find nothing there truly belonged to you? What if the addictions you've struggled with are merely attempts to distract yourself from the reality of carrying someone else's burdens? When you stop reacting, something remarkable happens. You realize the real pain isn't coming from the world around you, but rather from deep within yourself. You've spent years pointing outward, blaming circumstances, people, and events, convinced that something external was causing your suffering. But what happens when you pause? When you simply refuse to react? You realize the pain was always there, waiting patiently beneath the surface, a shadow you've carefully avoided facing. Carl Jung referred to this inner darkness as the shadow, the hidden parts of yourself you've rejected, ignored, and buried. Jung explained that the shadow is not something you must fight against or destroy. It's simply something you must acknowledge and understand deeply if you're ever to truly heal. The shadow isn't your enemy. It's the most honest part of you, the part that's been waiting quietly for you to finally turn around and see it clearly. Imagine yourself as a mirror that's been taken down from the wall. For the first time, there's no one else reflected in you. No external validation, no one else's expectations. You're forced to face the reflection that's always been there, but you've been too afraid or distracted to acknowledge. How does it feel to finally confront this unfiltered image of yourself? Can you see clearly now the parts you've hidden, the truths you've denied, the fears you've buried deep inside? Yet, there's a powerful freedom waiting for you in this silence. Silence isn't coldness or indifference. It's the profound moment when you stop expending energy on things you cannot control. It's the relief that comes from finally stepping out of a role you were never meant to play. Imagine taking off an ill-fitting jacket you've worn for years. A jacket stitched together from others' expectations, judgments, and assumptions. How would it feel to finally let that heavy garment slip from your shoulders and drop to the ground? Picture your life as a journal, a book of pages you've always left open for others to read, edit, and criticize. But now, for the very first time, you gently close that book, deciding it's finally time to start writing the words meant solely for your eyes. Can you sense the quiet freedom in writing your own narrative? Can you feel the peace that arises when you stop waiting for someone else's approval? Perhaps the most challenging yet empowering insight is recognizing the invisible loyalty you've maintained without even knowing it. You've believed that surpassing the limitations placed upon you by others is somehow a betrayal. That choosing yourself over inherited struggles would mean abandoning those who came before you. But what if the greatest honor you could give them is to finally break free and evolve beyond these old limiting stories? You're not rejecting anyone. You're simply stepping away from narratives that no longer fit your reality. Imagine tuning an old radio that's always been filled with static, never quite finding clarity. Suddenly you find the right frequency, and for the first time you clearly hear your own voice. It's not angry or resentful, it's calm, honest, and unmistakably yours. How does it feel to finally hear this authentic voice clearly? By choosing yourself, you're not betraying anyone. In fact, you're honoring their journey by respecting your own. You're acknowledging that carrying old stories no longer serves you, and that stepping forward is not abandonment, it's growth. The guilt you've held onto isn't yours. It's a misplaced loyalty to narratives you didn't create, beliefs that don't reflect your reality, and pains you never willingly chose to carry. This realization isn't about erasing your past, it's about finally integrating it. It's about acknowledging that you are neither your addiction nor your pain. You are the one who sees clearly beyond both. Can you imagine, even just briefly, how your life would shift if you allowed yourself the freedom to let go of what was never truly yours to begin with? Healing doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you consciously choose to stop repeating cycles that no longer serve you. It's not about forcing yourself into a perfect mold. It's simply about allowing yourself to become fully aware of the parts of your story you've outgrown. You don't have to carry someone else's baggage anymore. What would happen if you gently placed that invisible suitcase down, took a deep breath, and simply walked away? Take a moment now and ask yourself, what are you truly holding on to that no longer serves your life? Are you ready to release it? Not from anger, but from understanding and compassion. Are you prepared to finally stop pulling along these burdens, to finally set them down, recognizing clearly and calmly that they never belong to you? This isn't an end, it's the quiet beginning of your true journey. It's the moment you choose your own path, writing your story from this point forward. Not with shame or resentment, but with clarity and genuine compassion for the person you've always been meant to become. The moment you stop waiting for someone else to change, you finally meet the person you've always wanted to see, yourself. You've likely believed for years that your happiness depended on another's transformation, silently hoping they'd become who you needed them to be. But now, quietly and clearly, you begin to sense something different. It's not dramatic or sudden. It's more like waking gently from a dream. You've spent countless hours holding a door open, quietly hoping someone would walk through with validation and understanding. Yet, as you softly close that door, you notice the darkness you expected never truly comes. Instead, a quiet glow remains, one that's always been there, patiently waiting beneath your endless, waiting, and hoping. That glow isn't new. It's the quiet presence of your own inner strength, steady and calm, waiting for you to acknowledge it. How many times have you put your peace on hold, quietly believing it could only arrive when someone else changed first? Perhaps you've thought your life couldn't truly begin until certain conditions were met externally. But now, as you stand here, quietly and without resentment, you start to see clearly that your true life has been patiently waiting for you all along. Think of it as holding a lantern you've carried everywhere, constantly searching for someone else to ignite the flame. You've traveled far seeking external sparks, yet suddenly, quietly, you look within the lantern and see that the flame has always been softly burning. You realize now you've always had your own gentle source of illumination. In this realization comes genuine relief, not loneliness or isolation, but quiet reassurance. You've spent so long waiting for recognition from outside, never noticing that the recognition you truly needed was already within you. The person whose acceptance you sought externally has always been quietly waiting, never leaving you, always present inside your own heart. You haven't abandoned anyone by choosing to close the door. You've simply stopped carrying expectations that never belonged to you. You're no longer waiting for another's evolution, no longer holding your peace hostage to someone else's readiness. Instead, you're gently reclaiming your own path, clearly understanding that your wholeness isn't conditional upon external approval. Notice how this insight feels, not dramatic or forceful, but gentle and liberating. It doesn't push or demand. It quietly invites you to consider how your life might look if your happiness no longer depended upon another person's change. It softly encourages you to reflect. Who could you become if your peace wasn't tethered to external validation? In this moment, you begin to let go, not out of bitterness or loss, but through gentle acceptance and clarity. You're finally allowing yourself to see the simple truth. You've always been enough exactly as you are. There's no dramatic revelation, only quiet recognition of the quiet strength that has always been within you. You now sense the comfort in this solitude, not as loneliness, but as authentic connection with yourself. You no longer feel restless, no longer uncomfortable being alone, because you're finally realizing that the person you've waited for is already here, patiently, softly present. This quiet awakening isn't about external circumstances aligning perfectly. It's about internal alignment, about seeing yourself gently but clearly, without conditions or demands. It's about realizing the transformation you've waited for externally is happening quietly and naturally within you right now. You're not becoming someone new, you're gently rediscovering the person you've always been beneath the waiting and hoping. This subtle yet powerful shift occurs quietly inside you, one that doesn't require anyone else to change first. You're no longer dependent on others to define your value or validate your feelings. Instead, you find a calm and steady truth waiting patiently within yourself. And in this quiet understanding, you finally grasp something essential and clear. Your wait is over. Not because someone else changed, but because you softly and clearly chose yourself. Only when you stop being the easy option do others truly recognize your worth. You've always been there, always available, always accommodating. But has it ever brought you closer to feeling valued? Take an honest look right now. How often have you quietly accepted less than you deserved, hoping someone else would finally see your true worth? Your peace doesn't need permission from someone else's actions. It never has. You've waited long enough for recognition that never came. That quiet ache you felt inside wasn't from being overlooked by others. It was from overlooking yourself. Your presence has always had value. You simply forgot it along the way. Right now, in this clear, direct moment, pause and acknowledge what you've finally begun to see. Sit quietly for a minute. No distractions, no excuses, Just you, facing your own truth. Feel the relief as you finally stop holding your breath, waiting for someone else's validation. If you're feeling that clarity, act on it now. Leave a comment below sharing what you've just realized, or simply type, "I'm done being the easy option," to affirm your commitment clearly. Your words matter, not because someone else approves, but because you finally approved them yourself. And if this resonates deeply within you, subscribe and stay connected. This journey back to yourself is yours alone, but you don't have to walk it without guidance. Let's keep moving forward together, one honest step at a time.